All right, we are back, and we have a very special guest with us today, hailing from the proud surfing hamlet of Long Beach in New York. He is a regular fixture in lineups at some of the most heavy waves on the planet, from Nazare to Jaws to Mavericks and beyond. He is the first New Yorker to ever earn a spot on the big wave circuit, and he finished third alongside Andrew Cotton in the 2022 Tudor Nazare Challenge. He is the co-founder of Skudin Surf and his nonprofit Surf for All, which is dedicated to exposing individuals to and cultivating their joy for the ocean. We have the incredible Will Skudin. Will, thank you so much for joining us on the lineup.
Thank you, Dave. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Well, it's our pleasure. And I kind of mentioned you are sort of one of Long Beach's favorite sons, if not the favorite son. Are you talking to us from Long Beach, New York today?
I'm a little up the block from Long Beach in Rockville Center here at Florida Media. Our production manager, Jay Belskis, he travels with me everywhere I go, and he's got this awesome podcast place here and creative zone, actually, for a lot of influential people come through this space, and so we're just blessed to have him set us up here right now. So yeah, up the block from the house, but here with Jay in the spot.
You guys look dialed in, maybe more dialed in than we are. I'm a little bit jealous, but it's for those of us that have been on the West Coast for, I know, depending on how long, but certainly like the last 12 months, it's been a rough few seasons. And so for most of us, we're kind of desperately looking around the world being like, where have there been waves? And you can heat check me on this, but it looks like the East Coast has had a really good run of swell for the last several weeks. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, we actually, this is the first year in a while that we've had like overlapping swells. So it was no break in between hurricanes. So it was just, we had every letter basically starting from like, the first few always kind of ABC kind of start somewhere early in the season, kind of fade away. But then from like D all the way up, it was just overlapping every single hurricane. It was insane. Like, there was no time to take a break. It was one of those special seasons for sure.
Now, are you at a point in your life where you can, when you get a system like that and there's going to be multiple weeks of swell up and down the eastern seaboard, can you break away and hunt waves up and down the coast, or do you stay pretty close to home these days?
We were lucky that most of the swell models kind of were hyper focused in the Northeast this year. There was a few Outer Banks days that I should have got in my car, but I guess the getting a little older now and just like, I don't know, sacrifice a little bit of wind, but still score at home. But yeah, I did travel. We went up north and scored a slab. I had my tow partner, Andrew Cotton, in town for Hurricane Lee, so I wanted to show him a different area of the East Coast, and we kind of gambled on the back end of Hurricane Lee and scored some crazy slab up north. And so it was cool. I did a couple little missions out east and up north, but for the most part, the backyard was just pumping for 20 days straight. And everybody, like the first few swells, everybody comes. Literally, everybody in California shows up, and, it gets really busy, but there's magic in that. Think about it. People are traveling across the country to come to New York to surf. I mean, yeah, it gets busy, but the talent level in the water at one point was pretty incredible. It was pretty cool to see.
It is cool, and it's something that comes up a lot on this podcast, and usually we talk about it through the lens of it's changed so much since the internet, right? Where, 20, 30 years ago, if you were a young surfer, like your point of exposure to world-class surfing was either the best person at your beach or the occasional VHS, or if the tour came to town and you could see, CT surfers come and surf the same waves that you surf every day. I wonder if there's a version of that that's still true, because I always think it's the same, where you may think someone surfs a particular way, either watching them on a YouTube clip, but then seeing it in person really, like, it shows you kind of the finer points of how that person approaches wave riding. And I'd imagine that having a bunch of international surfers come to New York when it's pumping is not only great for you, but probably great for a bunch of the kids to see as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have there's a deep heritage of like really good surfers from New York that go back generations. But, during certain times, when you insert somebody at a high level into our community, it definitely raises the level of surfing. You could see it, like Ryan Carlson showed up back when we were young, but we're at a very pivotal time for the young guys like Balaram and TJ and Leaf, and the way he approached the wave definitely, put a lot of, it just changed. Those kids were probably 7, 8 years old when they saw the way he was doing airs on these little waves. And so that was, every time somebody at that higher level has shown up, it's kind of, you could see there is a spike in progression in the area, especially when people put time in. It's really nice when like the visitors come in and actually put time in. And, like when Cotty came, he hung out, went by a few of the boys' houses, did a nonprofit outing with the crew, and just kind of was a part of the community. So I know everyone's traveling through and it's hard to like spend time, but when people do travel through and they actually spend an extra day to be a part of the community, it really goes a long way with New Yorkers for sure.
I think that's such a good point you bring up too, because we see it on tour, and a lot of us have been guilty of it as well, where you end up talking to someone who's been, professional surfer, has been touring for whatever reason for years and years and years. And there's kind of two camps. There's the people that are really filled with regret because they're like, I didn't make those connections. I'd zip in, I'd zip out, I'd keep to myself, and I'd try to get my job done and get out of there. Then there are the people that, as you pointed out, like spent the extra days, like tried to settle in, tried to connect with the community. And even, decades on, those are the people that still have those lasting relationships where they can call someone up and they'd be welcomed back into the community as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, it's the bottom level of being a human, right? Like you give respect to get respect kind of thing. And I think like that's just globally with any sport or any traveling anywhere. And, I feel like if you're an experienced surfer that's trying to surf and travel, you kind of know that, right? So I feel like for the most part, I think that people are doing it correctly. And, I've been, seeing a lot of good stuff. Honestly, this hurricane season, the vibes were ridiculously good. Like everybody was stoked, from visitors to locals to, this is a hurricane season to remember. It was just, everybody had their day. Like every dog has its day kind of quote. You're right. This season allowed us to celebrate like every single local boy. Like I remember just like one swell or one day would like, there'd be one winner every day. And there's just a magic to that because we don't really get that too much, Some seasons, you only go home at the end of a season talking about 3 or 4 waves the whole season.
Right.
This year, I mean, there was so many waves I watched of all my friends and family, and I had sessions with literally every single person I grew up with, all the uncles, all the visitors. Like I was able to surf with everybody. So it was really fun. I stayed at home mostly and I got like really good, sessions just in the back. There's really honestly nothing better than scoring in your backyard, no matter where you are from in the planet. But there is something special about looking in the background and seeing the skyline, right? As far as like, New York is, it's a magic place. I didn't realize how magical New York really is until I started traveling, when I realized like how accessible our beaches are. And when I was travel, when I was younger, I was like, wow, man, you really you need a car. You need to like get to this parking lot. You need to pay this guy. You need to park here. You needed to travel to surf in other places to get good waves a lot. And I was just, wasn't until like I started traveling, I'm like, wow, like there's a lot of people of all different walks of life in New York that just can walk to the beach or take a train and be in 30 minutes be surfing. So the accessibility to the ocean in New York is pretty rad, and it's great to see, the diversity in the lineup and just the joy in the lineup, to be honest with you.
That's great to hear. Now, you are someone who always has worn what I think are kind of a lot of different hats as far as being a professional surfer, and I think you probably still do today. For our listeners' benefit, if you had to kind of outline what is your career in 2023, how would you describe it?
Surfing is it's it's a small market, right? So if if you want to stay in the sport and have money in the sport and pay your bills, you have to diversify your portfolio, right? So um, I grew up in a family of teaching surfing. My grandfather taught surfing. My mom taught surfing. Me and my brothers carried on that family tradition and turned it into more of a ocean education surf camp. And we're just blessed to be able to teach like tens of thousands of families throughout every summer to surf here in New York. And we just, the ocean education program are really not only just teaching the kids, like, you're not just standing up, but them going home with a respect for the ocean. Maybe they're showing up where they're looking at it as a pool and then they leave and understanding it's alive. And that's kind of our goal. So yeah, the surf camp has evolved over time, and that's just been amazing. We also have a swim program. My mom has built that curriculum from little tiny babies all the way up, and my brother Dave and Woody run the help with the swim programs, and my brother Cliff. There's four of us. He's my partner in the surf program. So, we're working with kids that have literally learned to swim with my mom from an infant, that are now like a CJ Mangio, East Coast surfing champion, came through our program. You got kids like Bo Chan, recent, kids, he's 15 now. I think he got second in Easterns, came up through our program. So it's like we're getting to see, like, it's pretty magical. Like when we first started, we honestly just didn't want a lifeguard anymore. We were like, how do we do something else besides, because we love the act of lifeguarding, but man, we can't sit still. It's just in our DNA. So yeah, it really evolved into a beautiful family business. And so the surf camps and the swim programs have been great. And obviously I still have good relationships with my sponsors and, surfing big waves. And then the wave pool experience at American Dream Mall. So that's amazing. That's been the last 3 years. That's just been the ultimate Rubik's Cube of my life, trying to figure that whole thing out. And it has its own community over there now, and it's very healthy, and it's a really, really epic experience. So if you're ever in town, come check that out. And then just a few other things, a lot of creative things. We do a lot of creative consulting with some brands, and thinking outside the box, and we're always dipping and weaving. But I feel like the focus in any kind of business, global, like for anybody, is having multiple streams. I feel like this day and age, if you're coming up and you're trying to chase something, is to really focus on having multiple streams, because you never know when one stream could dry up. So just understanding that, don't put all your eggs in one basket, diversify your portfolio, and just, stay true to what you believe in, and just stay focused and keep moving forward. Never get complacent, just keep moving and keep looking, and ultimately do whatever you can to stay in the ocean.
Well, it feels like you've kind of built that organically around the rhythms of your life as a surfer too, right? Because, I'd imagine that fall and winter, you've got your eye on, swell charts and traveling and hunting kind of these bigger waves. And then you're able to come back in the summer, spring and summer, and work through kind of the surf school and the swim programs as well.
I got really lucky with that one, for sure. Thank God that our summer is when it is.
Right.
Just because the Northern Hemisphere in the winter. So yeah, that's always been cool. We were able to, at the end of big wave season, be like, holy shit, we're still alive. And then we could celebrate our waves with our community and share in our failures, and share in our experiences, and share those stories with our community back at home. And then the next season would come around, and me and my brother Cliff kind of passed the puck for a while, and we've had our wipeout reel is pretty messed up. So yeah, it's been the summers have been a great reset for us, and it allows us to just breathe and just absorb what happened throughout the winter. And it's fun, man. It's cool. We got good people here in New York, and out of anywhere I've traveled, like the people in the Northeast, like, and where I grew up, like, they really, maybe just I'm biased because I'm from here, but people really care about each other. Like honestly care about each other. And like I get choked up even saying that because like I witness it like daily that people, there's not a lot of jealousy. There's not a lot of hate in my hometown. Like people really care. And I feel like this day and age, that's something that's like really fading in the world. And yeah, that's the beauty of like, of where we're from is like, we got a good community of people that really care for each other and will go out of their way for each other when they need it. And that's the hope, right? That we can keep that vibe alive with the youth, especially here in New York and at home in the Northeast.
Yeah. Kind of hearing you talk about that reminds me a little bit. I was talking to Raimana, a while back, and I said, man, you might have the most polarizing surfing life on the planet because half your time in the water is spent, up at Surf Ranch in Lemoore, like coaching people into getting barrels and you're riding a big soft top. And then it's just first gear to sixth gear. Like you go from that to like towing, backless monsters at Chopu. I said, you don't have anything in the middle. Like, how do you keep your differential from getting split? I'd imagine it's a similar challenge, but there might be a benefit in that, like you were saying, where you come home to your community, you're doing the surf school, you're able to kind of decompress. And then you get into big wave season. It's probably just a different set of muscles that you have working internally.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, yeah, they kind of feed each other. Like I think in the world, right, it's a battery. There can't be a positive without a negative. There can't be a up without a down. Like it's a round world. I like to say it's a round world. So, if you only have one side, if you're only focused on one thing and you're pushing just big waves, there's no reset. There's no, so I feel like, and I just get a lot of joy, to be honest with you, from like foiling a 1 foot wave or teaching my friends or watching my friends. Like, I love watching people get good waves. I mean, there's just like, I don't know, there's something wrong with me because there's like all these GoPro clips of me like swimming out on good days and like yelling at my camera. Like there's a lot of joy in like watching. I like to say like everybody has their own 50-foot day, right? Like it doesn't have to be 50 foot for it to be 50 foot for you, right? So like that 50-foot day, everybody has one. And no matter who you are, it could be your first day surfing or you could be the best big wave surfer in the world. But I feel like that's the magic of surfing is it's the same feeling for everybody.
When you're looking at, reports about, we've been in a La Nina, El Nino transition cycle. I'm not an expert, but from reading it sounds like we're entering into an El Nino year. Number one, you probably know more than I do. So do you agree with that? And then number two, does that at any level change your preparation or just change the way you feel about the upcoming winter season?
El Nino's, that word scares me. Yeah, man, it's true. I grew up watching the 98 El Nino, like all those clips on all those VHSs. And then the 2017 El Nino, that was like when I was pushing as hard as I've ever pushed in my life. And that was, if anybody, I remember laughing with Jamie Mitchell and JoJo at the end of the season, and we're like, oh my God, we made it to the end of the season. It was like the Amazing Race, it's like just to make it to the end of the season was like a celebration at an El Nino year. So yeah, I mean, mentally and physically, I'm ready for it, but I'm definitely gonna pick and choose my sessions this year. I had I've been doing this like really hard since I was 17 years old, so 21 years. So it's coming to a point in my life where I just really want to enjoy my friends, my family, everybody around me, but and just be pickier. We used to huck ourselves off windy, 30 footers, I guess we call them 60 footers on the East Coast, but Hawaiian language is 30 footers. But like, I'm just going to try to be smarter and just really try to enjoy the people around me more and just more of the experience. I love it though. I always want to be there. It's hard to get that FOMO. I didn't go to that last Maverick swell, so yeah, it's tough looking at it. But yeah, I'm ready. I just want to be. I always said I always say this. I have a lot of stupid one-liners, but never chase the first swell because as a visitor and someone from New York, and like just like the way I've seen the world in the last 21 years of chasing swells, like just the first swell is just it's good to let the first swell go by. There's a lot of hype behind it. The locals want their waves in their area. There's a lot of moving parts. It's always really tricky. So moving forward, it's just never chase the first swell. And I mean, if you take that in your life, then like the second swell, the vibes of swell two compared to swell one are so much mellower. The energy in the lineup so much chiller. Like don't get me wrong, I've had good first swells, but there's some magic in that quote. Just not don't chase the first swell. Uh,
I
but
like
I
it.
don't know.
It's also just deeply respectful. Like I really enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's a good point. We're gonna take a quick break to get a word in from our sponsors, and we'll be right back. All right, we are back. This is the lineup. I'm Dave Prodan here with Will Skudin. Will, you spoke really eloquently about your community in that first segment, but give us some more details. You are born and raised in Long Beach, and what was family life like growing up? And it sounds like you come almost from surfing royalty out of Long Beach there.
I was blessed, man. Raised right on the beach in Lido and then Long Beach, New York, right in Long Island, an hour from the city. Mom surfed, uncle surfed, dad surfed. Everybody, we're all lifeguards, swimmers. Swimming was like, I remember going to school when I was 6 years old, and one of my friends told me that he he didn't swim twice a day, and I was like, what? And I vividly remember this. And then I went home, and my dad had to explain to me that some families are basketball families, some families are baseball families. So yeah, I was just born into water, and it was just my upbringing. So I just, you never. They say that you become really good or you master the things you don't remember learning.
Mm.
So I just got to give it to my parents, my mom and my dad, for you know I don't remember really learning how to swim. I don't. They had me on the front of their board since I was little, so um, yeah. So I grew up in that environment where the ocean was my playground, and I was just blessed to have that. And we never really went on you know trips to go to amusement parks and stuff like that. It was just grab the boogie board or the fins or the surfboard and just go to the beach, whether it was snowing or if it was hot out. It was just part of our. We had like 4 different wetsuits we were putting on. It was a little wild, but it was always our playground growing up. So just definitely blessed to have a family, bring me up in the sea for sure.
Well, I was going to ask, did you ever bristle against it where you're like, oh, I want to play basketball or, I want to go to a Jets game or whatever? Or did you it was just a natural fit for you from the start?
We have a lot of lacrosse players in our family, so we all were kind of forced into lacrosse. But yeah, I'm just not good at it. My cousin was actually an MLB world champion lacrosse player, like Mike Skudin. My cousin Ian went to college for lacrosse. So there's definitely the lacrosse thing kind of merges itself in. My brother Cliff played, but I just gravitated to the ocean and to surfing. I swam competitively when I was young. I was pretty fast when I was 12. I finished top 12 in the nation. So I was thinking about going to college for swimming, all freestyle, sprinter, and but then the surfing thing kind of got on my radar, and I just remember at a young age, I just fascinated by big wave surfing.
Hmm.
I actually got to meet Laird at Lido when I was 12. So that was kind of cool because I feel like that made it real a little bit by seeing a human being and then going home and watching the VHS tapes that my dad had of Laird. So that was a cool moment. And then the guys that traveled in to New York, like you said, Flea came through. I remember meeting him. So yeah, it was just like getting to meet him. And then I was reading articles, and I remember reading one article when I was like 14 years old, how like these guys were like partying, and it was in Surfer magazine or something, and charging giant Mavericks. And I remember being like, Dad, like, I think I could do this. Like, I can hold my breath for like 4.5 minutes. My swimming, I'm here in my swimming ability. I won the junior, what was that? Junior lifeguard nationals. I won that. I'm like, I feel like this is something I could do. This guy's like, I read this article. Some of these guys are like partying hard, and I don't do that. So I remember having this deep conversation with my dad, and thank God he said if I worked hard and I saved enough money that he would take me to a big wave spot, and I got good grades. That was important, and then I remember busboying at night, and then like either teaching swimming or surfing or lifeguarding during the day, and I saved up enough money to get a plane ticket and a board from Jeff Clark, and we went out to a small day at Mavericks, and I was there with my Uncle Bill and Mike Nelson from Unsound and my dad, and that was it. I got that one little tiny barely breaking Mavericks chip shot on a 10-6 single fin Jeff Clark, and I think Grant Washburn was out there that day, and then after that I was just like, man, whatever we have to do, I want to try to keep doing this.
Well, what about before that, in and around home? Like, because obviously you mentioned being really attracted to big wave surfing, and there's magazines and there's videos, and you're meeting Laird and you're meeting Flea when they're coming to town. But like, were there everyday local influences from that community that had tackled big wave surfing before? Were there sizable waves you could access before having to travel for it back east? Like, what was that like for you?
I really honestly, like, there was a lot of guys from the East Coast and from New York that definitely pushed themselves out in Hawaii. But there was really nobody. I definitely had to hitchhike my way. I didn't have anybody. I never had anybody that uncled me. I didn't have anybody that was like, oh, that's the guy. Let me hit him up. Let me see if I can work underneath him, and he could, Daniel's son, like, right.
Yeah.
I didn't have that. So like a lot of my life is, was just hitchhiking, trying to figure it out. I actually, like, a version of the hitchhiking was when I was 17, West Lane, that's actually West Lane. He sponsored me with WRV when I was 16. So Wes kind of showed me, gave me that opportunity. He was in the YETI ICAO. I think that guy finished top 10 in the world on the CT. So He was kind of like, all right, he saw something in me that, like, I was like, wow, if he sees something in me, maybe there's a chance I could do something here. But he reached out to Garret. And when I was 17, I went up to Garret McNamara with like $300 or something at Oceanside Harbor, because they were going to Cortez Bank. And he told Wes to just show up with money and I can get on the boat. And I just remember walking up to him and handing him the money, and he just grabbed it from me. He's like, you're that Jersey boy, right? And I'm from New York, so I couldn't.
Like,
I was so scared to correct him. No, I couldn't correct him. I was like, yeah. And, I just said yes because I was so scared of Garret McNamara. I was like, and he was like, oh, grab those gas cans, load up the boat. And the next thing I know, I'm loading up the boat with all these gas cans, and then my board's in my friend's car. He was going to San Diego University. He drove me there. I stayed in his dorm that night. And I ran back and got my board, and I come on the boat. He's like, oh, Grom, you plan on surfing, huh? And I remember just like freezing and not even saying anything, but, you know. So, anyways, long story short, he ended up. It ended up not being that big that day out at Cortez. It was like clean, but not as big as way big for me.
Right.
At
Yeah.
the time. I was like, holy smokes. So I just ended up being his like guinea pig, and he just towed me into a million waves, screaming at me, go left, go left. He was going nuts. He was like, and that started my relationship with Garret. And then, Garret definitely helped me a lot along the way, like going out to Hawaii. He always kind of like let me drive a ski on the smaller days. And that's when the light bulb went off for me. It was like, hey, like with Garret and watching everybody, I was like, if I learn how to drive a jet ski really well, then I'm not going to get in anybody's way, and they might invite me more on these trips. So that was like the light bulb moment out in Hawaii. When I graduated high school early, went out to Hawaii. My brother Dave was swimming for University of Hawaii, and I would sleep in his dorm and then take the bus up. And then WRV house, I kept my boards underneath the WRV. The owner kind of owned the house, so we couldn't really stay there at the time. So I'd get my boards under there. And anyways, Garret kind of took me under his wing and showed me how to drive a ski. And then that was kind of the secret recipe to being able to kind of keep going.
Was there a moment when Garret asked if you were planning on surfing where in the back of your mind you went, did I just pay Garret to get the gas cans? Like, what's happening here? Am I supposed to surf like this?
Actually, you know what? I was fully blackout. I was like,
Right.
I couldn't believe he even like recognized me at the time because, 17 years old, super gung ho, wanting to be a big wave surfer. This is like before any social medias and stuff. Like, there was none of that, right? So I was like going off of like a whim. Like he didn't even know I was really. He probably got a call like weeks earlier from somebody who said I might show up, and so it was like full through. So I don't remember it play by play, but I do remember being very quiet and sitting in the back of the boat. There was like Josh Loya was on the boat and Skin Dog was on the boat, and like guys that had posters on my wall my whole life were on the boat. And I just remember being like, wow, like this is insane. I can't believe I'm on this boat. And yeah, there's a cool story to that too. It's funny. Exactly 20 years later was this year. From that trip was this year out at Cortez and with Garret and Cotty and everybody and 100-foot wave crew. So it was like a celebration of that.
I listened to this history podcast. I listen to it every week, but they had an episode about the continent of Abylonia, which is the creation of Cortez Bank. And if you haven't heard it, it's like just this wild, like boxing grifter that was like, we're going to sink a rig onto this reef. We're going to create our own independent country continent in international waters. And we're going to have an abalone factory. And they had no idea that like huge swells would hit the shelf. It's just,
I read that actually. I remember reading that. And I thought it was make believe. Is that real?
It's totally real. I'll send it to you after this. It's mind blowing, but it's such a scary play. Yeah.
Yeah. And the crazy thing is like somehow that guy probably almost got it passed,
Oh, yeah. It sounds, if I remember correctly, the only thing that went wrong is everything got destroyed because of the giant waves. But outside of that, they were like technically within their legal rights. Like you mentioned West Lane and WRV seeing something in you at a young age. But in your own mind at the time, like had you kind of had a version of a professional surfing career crystallized? And by that, I mean, were you like, well, maybe I'll do contests and free surfing and big wave stuff? Or were you really focused? Were you starting to kind of realize like, I think the investment in me and I think my avenue is going to be in this sort of big wave space?
I knew right away that, let's call it like you have to kind of know who you are. You have to look in the mirror at the end of every day, right? Or at the beginning of every morning. And I don't have the talent on a surfboard to compete at a CT level, straight up. But I can make quick drops. I can get in little tubes. I can make shore break drops, and I can carry that quick reaction drop into big wave surfing. Plus, contests are always tricky for me. I mean, I remember I did Easterns. Did pretty well in Easterns one year. I think I got second, but I just love swimming. I love the ocean. I love the idea of like the magic behind surfing is like wave knowledge, right? That like evens out the field. When you take away wave knowledge, it's just straight up a talent contest, right? So like the surfing is reading the ocean to me was something that that I've always loved about surfing, right? You could if you could be in a crowded lineup, but if you could see the little ribs and the little curves and the especially in a beach break, if you could read it a little bit better, then you can get the good ones, and you can get lucky, right? You get, oh, why is he so lucky? Why did people say it's luck, but sometimes it's you probably talk to thousands of surfers that got lucky in their life, but it's probably just their wave, reading the waves and their wave knowledge. So
yeah, that comes up a lot on this podcast, and where I've kind of landed on a personal philosophy on it is, they talk about like foreign language. If you ever want to be truly fluent in another language, they say, you're supposed to learn it between 4 and 8 because your brain is still forming and you'll have that fluidity. It's not that you can't become like very, very fluent and good at speaking a foreign language if you start learning at like 15 and study for years and years, but they're like that true natural fluency comes from understanding it at a really young age. And I always thought of it similarly with, people that seem really comfortable in the ocean, whether it's, John out at Pipe or even what you're describing, your comfort level. I would imagine a version of that just comes from being out there and taught how to navigate the ocean or figuring out how to navigate the ocean at a really young age, because your brain gets comfortable and you run the string out on someone like that, and then they're 16, 17, 25, 35, and you're on the water with them being like, how's that person on every good wave? I don't get it. Like, what are they saying that I'm not? But they're probably not even fully conscious of it either.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's I guess the 10,000 hour kind of idea, right?
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, that's all to me. Like that's the addiction of surfing. And that's why surfing kind of can reach a lot farther than other sports, because there's always the element of the surprise wave, right? The set of the day, the magic one that comes to you, the reading, you read it correctly. You didn't go on, didn't go in the first wave of the set. So there's the magic in surfing is like choosing which wave to go on. And I think that's what keeps us all so super psyched on the sport is that element. And I think we don't even think about it a lot. We watch these contests. We watch all these surfing clips. We're all, surf fans here. But the magic in between the waves, what's going on between it, and how is that person setting themselves up for that next wave, and how did they get that wave, right? Where did it all start?
Yeah. I liked what you said about, running it back a little bit, identifying a need, right? Because you want to get into this community, you're looking for guidance and mentorship and opportunity, and you get on the boat at Cortez, you start getting a little bit of access to Garret McNamara in Hawaii, and in the back of your mind you thought, well, if I can become a good ski driver, I can become useful to these people, and maybe that opens up more doors to me. And I really enjoyed you articulating that approach to ingraining yourself with this group of people. When do things start to roll in terms of getting, professional sponsorship support for what you wanted to do? You mentioned WRV. Who were some of the other sponsors that took an interest in you, and who are you with today still?
Yeah, so being from New York, that's like accidentally has helped me. In the beginning, we always thought, oh man, like, you would think you would have to be from California or Australia or Hawaii to have a career at the sport. But I got sponsored at a young age by Zoo York, and they were looking to pick up some surfers, and it was right when I was supposed to go to college, and I got this contract from Zoo York And shout out to Nardelli and Seamus at New York for seeing something in me, and they gave me I think it was like $500 a month and like a nice little travel fund, and it was like hitting the lotto. I couldn't believe it. And my dad was like, "Just do it for a year. You can always go back to college." And then that was like, and I worked my way with New York for years. Helped become I worked my way into a team management position with them too, as well as surfing with them. And then that kind of, Zoo kind of stopped their surf program. And then that I learned, it was like going to college with those guys. I was with them, I think, for like 7 or 8 years. And then that's, well, I learned so much from marketing, and I learned so much from just like throwing events, and just like those guys were some of the most creative people I've ever met in my life. And I got a front row seat to like guerrilla marketing and at its finest, like spray, these guys are spray painting fake cockroaches and throwing them all over the city. It was cool, man. There was it was the golden era of true guerrilla marketing brands, and it was cool. So I got to meet some really good people, and I just carried that energy into the Skudin Surf and the camps, and I kind of kept it fun. We always did events, and then it got me to my relationship with Hurley, and then I've been with Hurley for over 10 years. I met when Evan Slater was on Hurley, and Pat O'Connell. That's I knew those guys, and we got connected. Forget through who we got connected through, but we just we were speaking the same language, and they wanted a footprint in New York a little bit, and that was just a natural connection with Hurley. They were really family oriented, and they knew it was we were a family surf company, and still surf a lot. And then 5 years after, 5 years into my Hurley connection, YETI. YETI just started from just a very, very similar storyline of Skudin Surf, and just focusing on quality and product, and those guys, they're so down to earth, and it was just such a natural progression, natural fit. I mean, for me. And so I've been with Hurley for 10 years, YETI 5 now, and it's just been beautiful. Everything is really what's the word I'm looking for? It's organic, very organic relationship. Just the products for both companies work hand in hand. Even today, this morning, we had a nonprofit, our nonprofit Surf for All, down at the beach this morning, and these kids are getting suited up with Hurley wetsuits. We decked out this YETI filtration water system right at the surf club, so they're filling up their water bottles, and it's these kids, no one's looking at the brands, no one's looking at the logos, but it's just it's making the experience at Skudin Surf just so much better. And right. That's what's been happening for the past decade and half decade with those two brands, is the experience. It's just a very, just kind of flows, and we're just helping people stay in the water, and that's been the beauty of those. We all kind of see the same thing at the end of the day.
That does feel like it's a pretty common theme amongst, modern day, partner relationships for athletes and for surfers. Whereas, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, especially when you're a young surfer and you want to be included, I think a lot of surfers we talk to admit they're like, well, I signed with this company because I wanted to be in so badly, and I didn't have a ton of agency over how I was portrayed or what that relationship looked like. And then, the ones that kind of make it, or the ones that are a little bit maybe more mature in the way they deal with it, they're partnering with brands and they're comfortable in saying no. And when they do partner with someone, they're like, oh, I actually use those products. And that feels like a common thread with pretty much every YETI ambassador we speak to. They're like, I was using the products before I had the partnership, and I'd use them every day anyway. And it makes sense because they're super durable and practical, but I imagine it's the same with you. You probably have YETI stuff you use every day.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the the Camino, it's like the manliest purse ever.
All right, yeah.
I actually I use that. It's crazy. That bag I use every single day, and then even traveling, I use it as a tail protector for my boards.
Oh, right.
So like
Okay,
I
there you go.
literally found like it always like reinvents itself. So like, and it's just perfect for wetsuits. And so that bag in itself has been like the bag for me that's been like every single day. It's like just you could just, I travel with it. I can keep everything in it. It's just, for me, that thing has just been like an everyday thing. And I would never, before my relationship with YETI, like I would have never like saw myself carrying around this bag all the time. But now my life is like, it's crazy how much I use the product like without thinking about it.
It's so funny.
There's a few other
Yeah,
products too that are just like really, sorry to cut you off.
No, you go, please.
But yeah, the sidekick, I talk a lot about jet skis, right?
Right.
So there's a little bag called the sidekick, and it again, here we go with the world's manliest fanny pack, basically, right? So it is, and it's waterproof, and it's small, and it fits perfectly in the ski, like right, not in that front hatch, but like right there, right in front of you. So I always keep like my sunscreen, my phone, like every like important, a fin key, like every important thing in that bag. And like, and I'm on a ski, hundreds of if not, thousands of times a year. So like I have to have 2 or 3 of those like on deck. Like I stash a few in certain places. So it's funny, man. And it's kind of wild. Me and my brother were talking about the other day, cause like there's these, we have these roadies, the roadie coolers that you fill with water, and they're at every single one of our locations, our surf camp locations, and they're at the wave pool. And it's like, we were talking about this the other day, like how, like, what did we do before that?
Yeah, right.
So it's like, yeah, I don't know, man. It's really, it's cool, man. It's really been a healthy, awesome relationship. And yeah, we're looking forward to, we have some fun stuff in the future too. So we're looking forward to some urban style stuff in the future.
I like it. You mentioned something I thought was interesting before, where you said a real blessing in a lot of ways on the sponsorship front to be from New York, because it's not a hugely impacted community with so many surfers that were as good as you, right? In a lot of ways. And for brands that are looking to tap into someone from New York, from the area, that carries with them, a lot of the culture from that really potent community as well, is really valuable to them. How much, if at all, have you had to kind of balance, being from New York with kind of, I guess, just kind of traveling the world, knowing that everyone kind of has, preconceptions about people from New York, and knowing that kind of everyone in the world's probably heard of where you're from, but that might not always be the other way around.
Yeah. Being from New York and like traveling, it's like, it goes both ways, right? Sometimes it's like, it's awesome because, people are like, oh, wow, I didn't know someone could surf from New York.
Right.
And it kind of is like, like, it's like, you get, people don't expect you to be at a high level. So you kind of like, all right, yeah, like it's kind of your starting ground. You can almost be like a underdog kind of thing, right? But then on the other side of it, it gets frustrating sometimes because there is generations of surf families, from the Bungers to like you name them, like all the way down the line. Like I don't want to leave anybody out, but I could name 30 last names of generational surf families. Like, and even going back, like Ricky Rasmussen, 1974 national champion, ripped at pipe stayed, I think, at the Lopez's house, and he was from New York, so right. If you look at Gilgo Beach in the 60s in New York, it was crowded in the 60s, like shoulder to shoulder longboarders. Like every family had 1 or 2 boards, and surfing took a global dip in the 70s and 80s and made its rise back in the 90s. But that for me, I'm like, oh man, like surfing is it like the epicenter of the East Coast for surfing kind of was New York back in the 60s. And I think that gets forgotten a lot, is that we're not like, we're not new here. I'm not like, we're not the first surfers from New York to do any of this. Like, we aren't. There was guys spending time in Hawaii charging Waimea that were from New York, but they just, they were just firefighters and merchant marines. And, like Dom Eichen, Gums is named after him. And he's a New York guy. He's he got his teeth knocked out of a pipe, got out of the water. Someone took a picture of him and ended up being on the cover of some Hawaii magazine. And everybody started calling the wave next to Pipeline Gums after Don Eichen, a New Yorker. But, he wasn't like, I feel like the New Yorkers, they kind of were just winging it always, they never really went about it as like a trying to be on any kind of competition or anything. So, but yeah, so that's kind of, it's helped me in my life being from New York, definitely. And then at certain times you're like, man, you want to educate everybody. Like, hey, there's a huge heritage of surfers from New York, so it definitely works for business and like for companies and stuff. It's definitely cool because there's so many people. I mean, there's 12 million people that live in New York City. So, it's important for the surfing community and especially the surfing market to understand that, there's people here that they can team up with. And, there's not just a few of us. You walk any jetty when the waves are good and there's a kid ripping or a guy ripping that, could represent a brand globally, So I feel like there could be a little bit more that, influencers or surfers that could team up with more companies here in New York. And especially with the market growing the way it is, I feel like it's a little swayed. I feel like we could pull some more events and more stuff this way,
Yeah, and I think kind of to what you said before, like it's certainly, building up and creating connective tissue with communities like surfing communities like in New York, it eliminates a lot of the homogenization that happens in surfing a lot of times, where it's like everyone's surfing the same, they're all from the same town, they're all surfing the same wave, where someone like yourself or someone like Balaram can then flourish at their home beach in New York and then go out on the world stage and offer something different and offer kind of a different perspective both in and out of the water. And I think that just kind of makes surfing much better.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're just, you see it, you could see it on the global level, like certain guys that came from certain places where they didn't come from perfect waves or, perfect upbringings where they had people taking them under their wing and surf coaching and stuff. And, there's a little grit to that, so yeah, it's cool. It's not bad being the redheaded stepchild every once in a while,
I like it.
Yeah. Little chip on her shoulders are, there's a reason why, all of us over here on the Northeast, East Coast, we have punchy, shore breaky, barreling. There's a reason why all of us know how to get really barreled, but none of us know how to do a cutback,
We're all products of our environment.
Yeah, we have the 2-stage cutbacks, but we all have an end maneuver and we know how to get barreled. So,
although it doesn't explain you being able to knife a drop on a 60-footer at Nazare, but we'll get to that, I suppose.
I know, man. If you can make a drop at a shore break, a super steep shore break, a slabby shore break on a shortboard, then you could carry that same fast reaction surfing into big wave surfing for sure. Like, yes, you have to conquer the mental battles and the training, and you have to be ready for the worst case scenario, right? Because, in my career, we've been in very heavy situations, and you need to be ready for those situations, not only for yourself, but to step up when other people need you, right? But as far as that little, like making a drop on a shore break, on a shortboard, a very heavy shore break, that technicality is on the same level as making a drop on a big waves. And I mean, maybe it sounds crazy, but it's the truth.
That makes sense. I actually think you should put that on the t-shirt. Just quote, "A drop's a drop." Will Skudin. I'm into it. I'd buy one.
What is that old quote? Drop in, find out.
Right. There you go.
Remember that? Stop
I
and find
remember.
out.
There you go. We're going to take one more quick break to get a word in from our sponsors, and we'll be right back. All right, we are back. This is the lineup. I'm Dave Prodan. I'm here with Long Beach, New York's Will Skudin. Will, talk to me a little bit about your nonprofit, Surf for All. How did that get started? Like, what do you guys do through that program?
Surf for All started from my brother Cliff, actually, I think 13, 14 years ago. And we just believe that, the ocean's a source of healing that should be accessible to everybody, for all, So Cliff noticed, and myself noticed a lot of nonprofits coming through New York and sharing the great messages that they're sharing and inspiring kids, whether it was, the Malleola or Life Rolls On or Walk on Water or, Surfers Healing. They all would come in and we would help out, and they would just put out magic and make kids super excited. And New York, you'd see the excitement on these kids in New York was just, it was really eye-opening to us. And they would go back on tour or travel to the next spot, and then we would kind of be left with a lot of stoked kids or parents that want their kids to keep surfing. So we started our own nonprofit called Surf for All, and we just kept the kids that really gravitated towards the ocean, and you could tell their healing properties of the ocean that were really working through them. We help raise money and sponsor those kids to keep surfing throughout the year, obviously in the summer, fall, and spring. As far as the ocean goes, it's we're really blessed and excited to say that the New York school districts are finally recognizing surf therapy. Where California, you guys have been doing it for over 20 years. New York finally is recognizing surf therapy, and they're bringing out the school, kids with autism out to the surf club during school hours, and these kids are using the ocean to, generate, to stimulate them and get them rocking and rolling. And we've seen amazing healing and go down from, kids that were once not as vocal to being more vocal now, and just a build of confidence, I would say, like, in a whole with the community. So that's been amazing. And then now the nonprofit working hand in hand with the American Dream Mall at Skudin Surf at American Dream, wave pool, the indoor wave pool. It's such a wild experience, that wave, because it's not the biggest wave, it's not the longest wave, but it is fun as it gets. And like when you come and you surf it, and you actually, it's a punchy, really fun wave, and it's impossible to show people the joy of that place from photos and video. But what we were able to do, and we just won an award with the Wave Pool Summit, gave us an award for utilizing the space as a place of healing for kids that and adults that needed to use it, whether they had any kind of physical or mental disabilities or financial. If they couldn't afford to come out, or they didn't have that backbone in their life to be able to utilize the sport of surfing. We helped raise money, and we teamed up with a lot of mentor companies, and the Loya Bea, Stoke Mentoring, Chill Foundation. There's a bunch of foundations that we team up with, and they've been bringing these kids out, and we've been utilizing the wave pool for healing throughout the winter and through the summer too. But that has been incredible. With a controlled environment and surfing at a wave pool, I feel like that's accidentally why these wave pools are made, because those are the people that get the most out of it.
Right. I mean, that was always kind of the great promise of wave pool technology. It's like, we're going to democratize access to waves, and even though the ocean's free, like, it doesn't mean it's accessible for everybody. And so that is such a cool thing. And just so I'm clear, like, what is your role at that wave system, Skudin Surf, at the American Dream. My understanding is that the technology they're using is the Perfect Swell technology from American wave machines, which I think is the same one they use in Waco. And if so, that is super punchy and super fun, and it just produces so many waves, and you can kind of service quite a lot of surfers at the same time. But what's been your role in the development of that facility?
Yeah, so we're the surf experience in the off hours. So during the off hours, the nights and the mornings, we are providing a surf experience with multiple waves on the menu that you could choose from. We're broken into either private sessions or public sessions depending on your level and ability. So we do our best to match the equipment to the board, to the instructor, to the wave in the water to give you a growing experience in the water. So yeah, that's kind of, it's really worked out into some really cool. It's a really good place for that intermediate advanced surfer to really like break through those barriers. And I keep talking about like quick reaction surfing,
Right?
And it's small adjustments make big improvements in surfing, and we're noticing that the pool time really carries over into the ocean with a lot of people.
That's
So
very
yeah,
cool.
it's been fun. We have a great staff over there, and like there's nothing better than walking through 4 feet of snow and then walking into this bubble, and it's 80-degree water, 80-degree air, and you're 5-10 minutes from New York City. It's like I still walk in there, and I've been there for 3 years, working there, helping build the whole model, and like I still get this wow feeling, like what is going on here? So it is, it's really cool. So and it's so close to New York City, and I think that's the magic of it, right? To just be. The other day was raining, like pouring rain, and the whole roof, you can hear the rain going off, and all these people are surfing bareback without even they just heard the music. They didn't even hear the rain. So it was really cool. I mean, we deal with so many elements being from the Northeast. Like, when the waves are good, they're good for 4 minutes.
Right,
When
right,
the
yeah.
when the weather's good, it's good for an hour. It's like, so just to delete that out of your head and be able to just go catch a fun wasted chest high wave that pumps out every 30 seconds is definitely gave a lot of people a lot of sanity, especially guys like my age, that are, life gets busy, man, when you get older. And so a lot of guys that maybe haven't had time for surfing in their life as much as they wanted,
Mhm.
now they can go at night or early in the morning and kind of get their reps in.
Right, you're not burning all that energy. We talk about this a lot when it's like people at the climbing gym, like the rocks are always there, versus surfers who are like, man, what's the tide and the wind and the sandbar and the swell direction, like just driving around for hours going like I just couldn't find it. Where people are like, yeah, well, if it's there and it's going to be good, like you're saving so much energy. Taking it back to this upcoming El Nino season, you mentioned something really interesting in the first segment about not feeling the pressure to be on every swell, not feeling the personal pressure to like push it maybe as much as you were. And I'm always interested in having this conversation with big wave surfers, because there's a bit of the, dragon slayer complex to it, right? Where it's like, well, yeah, like slaying these dragons and riding these big waves and pushing myself is why I get out of bed in the morning. And then at some point, either the dragon gets you, you have to kind of step away a little bit. And sometimes people do it. You mentioned Ken Skin Dog Collins. I think one day at Mavericks, he just said, yep, that was me. I'm done. I'm done putting that pressure on myself. Sometimes, talking to someone like Shane Dorian, he's like, yeah, my kids were a big driving force in me being smarter and more calculated in how I'm approaching big waves. Has anything contributed to your current perspective on chasing big waves and pushing it out in the water, or is it just a place you've ended up?
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, uh, about a year ago or 2 years ago, I like it hit like a brick wall, and I remember just kind of talking to myself and just realizing that like I accomplished my dreams
Hmm.
in my life as a you know as a wave rider. I rode the waves I've always wanted to ride, and I've accomplished my goals. Like, I never really set out to be like a big wave world champion.
Hmm.
I didn't set out to like win contests. Like, I just really honestly wanted to ride these waves that I was seeing in magazines and VHS tapes. And the tours and the events kind of evolved as I was becoming a part of this community. So, making a few finals in my career at Jaws and Porto Escondido and Nell Scott Reef, and getting like when it was, the WSL was, I mean, it wasn't WSL. I don't know who was running at the time, but they do these awards and at the end of the year, and getting nominated for a few of those awards and stuff is like, as far as like, I realized that like that was just like the crazy bonus. Like, I didn't really, and then when I got in that space, I remember like after like a final being like, I could win this next year. I was so close. I was looking at the points. I'm like, I just got to do this. And then I'm like, you know what, man? Like, that's just like the crazy competitor in me. Like, being like, I never set out to do that. I never set out to win any big wave contests. I really didn't. I never set out to try to be the best big wave surfer in the world. That wasn't my goal. My goal when I was young was just to be in the lineup and be a part of that community, and look across the lineup, and like when these guys that are my heroes, that are now my peers, like saying hi to me and telling me, "Oh, sick one," or "Nice wave, Will." Like I get choked up just talking about it, but like that's what I always wanted. Like I just wanted to be a part of it and get these waves. Just just the waves themselves have so much feeling when you ride out of a wave. It just creates so much energy in your blood, and there's just something special riding big waves that just really drew me to it, and to be a part of it was what I always wanted. And when I felt that and I accepted that I accomplished my goals as as a surfer, it was a tough moment, because then it was kind of like, now what?
Well, I'm glad. I was going to ask, like, was it relief? Was it sadness? Like, was it a mixture? Like, I'm curious.
Well, they say it's about the journey, not the destination, right? And so that's kind of like, that's a great quote, but when you get to your destination and you're kind of done with the journey, think about that quote the other way, right?
Right.
So there was a moment where it was a low moment in my life where I was like, what am I doing? So I had to dive deep, and talk to myself, my family, to God, and I kind of found where I wanted to be. And now, I'm just going in at it at my own pace. And, some of my best waves in my life have been in the last year, especially with like guys like Andrew Cotton by my side now. And, good friends in Ireland, with my friend Dylan and Barry and Connor, and just being able to take a step out and just see what's going on around me, rather than being like this hyper focused big wave surfer. There's magic in that, and just getting to enjoy it with my family and friends around me, and just seeing the magic that was always surrounding me, but I never really got to see it because I was so focused on the next set, right? So yeah, there was a down point, but like I said, it's a round world, right? So I got to I realized I got to my destination as an athlete, but then it brought me back to square one, to my first waves, to my first day teaching someone to surf, to my nonprofit, to getting everybody out there has their own 50 footer, and maybe I'm the guy that can help people get that one, whether it's a 2 footer or it's a 1 footer. the nonprofit work or whatever it is. But my waves will always. I'm blessed, man. Like when I'm in the lineup at home, like sometimes I just let like 5 set waves go by, just because I see everyone so psyched. I'm like sometimes I don't even paddle for waves anymore, And I feel like that's a big reason why sometimes I didn't get on the airplane to go to Mavs. There's definitely some changing going on, but I'm excited about it. I'm excited to be an uncle to a lot of these kids coming up on the East Coast. Got a lot of kids reaching out to me, a lot of youth on the East Coast that saw that I was able to do it, and I'm here for them and a lot of them, and help guide them and tell them the things that I've done wrong and the things I've done right. So being more of an uncle, being more of an ambassador of the sport, and still getting my waves, man. I'm not hanging it up. I'm definitely not. I'm going, like I'm a little Michael Jordan. No, I'm not calling myself Michael Jordan, but like, how he went to baseball and then back to basketball and like, so like, far from that guy. I'm more like John Starks. Yeah.
I like it. Appreciate you sharing that with us. It's really well articulated.
So that's where I'm at now. And like I said, like it's, that's it. I was wondering if you were going to kind of tap into that, but it's funny because like you talk and then like, that's definitely an emotional thing because we put our lives on the line, and we've lost friends. I've almost, lost my life. So we kind of, we're all brothers out there, and we all got to look after each other and sisters. And, there's a sick community now, and I'm just blessed to be an uncle in the mix.
It's very cool. We put a feeler out on our Instagram channel at the Lineup Pod for questions for you. We got a ton back, but we've whittled them down to 3. First question is from @Avant Surfwax, who asks, can you walk us through the visualization you do weeks before riding big waves? Assuming you do visualization.
Yeah, that person definitely must know or has come through one of our experiences, because my mom actually taught me like the art of visualization at a young age. I used to visualize my swim races when I was like 6 years old. So there's different environments to visualize, but I always try to do it in the morning before any session. And you just got to calm yourself down. You got to find a happy place and just kind of close your eyes. It could only be for 1 minute, or it could be for 10 minutes, or it could be for a half hour. But, you just got to find a happy place and just close your eyes and just run through your day, or run through your waves, and just really, really get it dialed. Don't just go for the wish, go really live it. Live every bump, live every takeoff, every paddle, and really walk your way through your waves or your experience or whatever you're doing that day. Walk yourself through it. And almost like if you were to watch what you were doing that day in slow motion. I tell people, when you visualize what you're about to do, slow it down, times 10, slow it down and just really walk yourself through it. And then you could walk yourself through it, and then, 50% of the time, or maybe less, it works out that way. But hey, man, when there's some magic in visualization, and it's not just wave to wave, it's also in life.
I like it. Great answer. Second question is from @Jack Boosh, who asks, what is your favorite pizza slice in New York?
Damn, that's
an important question. Yeah.
That's gnarly. That's crazy. Well, it depends on where I'm eating. Because like the better the pizza place, the more simpler the slice, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a place in Brooklyn called Lindustry, and actually Action Bronson brought me there for the first time, and name dropping. I don't like doing that, but whatever.
He brought you. That's the way it worked.
Yeah. It was with Jay here, and it was a regular slice, and it was just very basic margarita. With some olive oil, thin crust, and it was just next level. And yeah, that was it. That's just a regular slice from Linden Street in Brooklyn. But
Good
if
to
if I'm at home, then I'll do like a buffalo slice from like Geno's or East End Pizza. But yeah, I don't know, man. That margarita slice from Linden Street was next level.
I like it. Last one that we culled from the herd here on Instagram is from @Hunter Sends It, who asks, "What was your longest hold down?"
Damn, that's a good one. My longest hold down was January 5th, 2007. And it was at
Memorable.
Todos Santos in Mexico. And it was a day that all of us will remember. Like Greg was there, Rusty, Healy, all the boys, the whole squad was there. It was massive. And pretty much all of us got clean. I think Greg just rode a wave to the channel, but all of us got cleaned up. Healy got cleaned up. I got cleaned up. Rusty got cleaned up. All the whole lineup got cleaned up by this one set. And I was in front of Mark paddling up the wave. And it was probably the biggest wave I've ever paddled up in my life, still to this day. And I didn't ditch my board because I didn't want to kill Mark. Literally, I remember I was directly in front of him when I started paddling. So I was like, I was young, right? So I was like, I don't want to be the guy that kills Mark Healy. So I held onto my board and I got sucked over the falls trying to punch through. I got sucked over, from 60 feet above sea level to 60 feet below sea level in like a fraction of a second. And yeah, I was under forever. I don't even I literally it was one of those moments where I had to dive deep into the brain. This is before flotation and all that stuff. So yeah, I honestly, I almost died. I honestly really came to I guess I came up, but my buddy was on a ski, Randy Lane, West Lane's brother, and I got on his sled, and I don't remember any of this. And then I was throwing up a little bit, and he said I was under forever. He was like, he couldn't believe how long I was underwater for. So yeah, I actually didn't even surf. I didn't surf for like 6 months after that. And I didn't want anything to do with big wave surfing. And then, after the summer, the restart of New York summer kind of came around, I kind of got back into it. But yeah, that was the worst one. That was the worst one. And I was probably seconds away from not being alive anymore.
Yeesh. Well, thank you to everyone that wrote in at the lineup pod. Thank you for answering, Will. We are now down to our final segment, which is the lightning round. So here are 10 questions for you to answer as quickly as you can. First question. If you could only have one board set up for the rest of your life, single fin, twin fin, thruster, quad bonzer, or finless, which would you choose?
Quad.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Burrito or pizza?
Burrito.
Oh, wow. Last book you read?
The last book I read was Garrett's book, The Hounds. What's that book? What's the name of it? Sea Hound or something? I forget.
I know, the Garret McNamara book, right?
Yeah.
Let's get it. Hound of the Sea. You're there.
Hound of the Sea.
There you go. Best surf film ever?
Focus.
One wave you never have to go back to?
Mavericks.
If you only get to surf one wave for the rest of your life, and you can dreamcast it, it could be perfect conditions, just your buddies, but one wave, what would it be?
Mullaghmore, Ireland.
Best person to share a lineup with?
My brother Cliff.
Worst person to share a lineup with?
my brother Cliff's friends.
Last one. Finish this sentence. I will next achieve a state of happiness by...
Fishing with my family.
I like it. Will, for listeners out there that want to get more involved in what you do, whether it's the nonprofit or the wave system, where can people get more information?
Just check out SkudinSurf.com or just put in Skudin Surf. That should get you everything you need. You can go check it out on there. It could bring you to our nonprofit Surf for All. It can also bring you to our wave pool experience. So yeah, just check out Skudin Surf. Just throw it in the Google and it could kind of take you wherever you need. But yeah, come check us out if you're in New York. Come get a few waves with us.
Right on. Will Skudin, thank you so much for coming on the lineup. Congratulations on everything you continue to do in surfing. And I got to get out to the East Coast and check your programs out because they sound really cool.
Yeah, brother. We'd love to host you. Thank you so much for your time.